Ricky Bottalico, Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game, going to give us a little bit of his time to take a look at this team, which, I don't know, PT, is there a lot of excitement for this team? You excited for the Phillies to begin their season?
Well, I hope you didn't buy your Tyler Goodell jersey since now he's going back to Double-A. Let's put it that way. Although he had one of the most exciting plays last season. I was in the stands when he had that outfield assist, and that ended the game. That was one of the few times that I was like, holy cow.
And by the way, speaking of Phillies outfielders, Michael Saunders got hit in the hand today by a pitch. He had to leave the game. We'll see what happens there. But, should there be more excitement? Should there be more talk about this team, or are they just simply not ready? Ricky Bottalico joins us now with a look at the Phillies as they are about 1 week away from opening day. Ricky Bo, welcome back.
What's up, Mike? Pete, what's going on, guys?
Everything's good. I was just down in Clearwater. Just got back on Tuesday, and, good crowd there for St. Patty's Day, and everybody seems like they're there for the game. But I don't know. You sense that people think that this team can surprise a little bit? What are you learning about this team through spring training so far?
Well, first things first, St. Patty's Day and spring training, everybody's always happy.
No question.
I mean, they're better than last year. On paper, they're better than last year. That's what that's the one thing everybody should be looking at because we're looking for forward progress, right? So, I'm going into the season with a positive mindset. I really think that Matt Klentak did the right thing in going out and getting corner outfielders. It makes their offense better automatically. I mean, when you look at what the corner outfield did last year, it was, all right, we'll say pitiful.
Abysmal.
That's exactly what it was. And this year, you just said Saunders got hit on the hand. Who knows what's going to happen there? But Kendrick, a veteran presence out in the outfield. And it seems as though Aaron Altair has gotten his swing back in spring training. So some good things happening. And I guess for the most part, optimism is always good at the beginning of the year.
Get a lot of guys returning. The middle of the infield, the whole infield virtually is the same. Rupp's back behind the plate now, more full-time than last year. Herrera's back. Really, the only two additions are the two corner spots. But this pitching rotation, is this a pitching rotation that people should be talking more about?
It can be good. I liked what I saw from, health-wise from Nola. I don't think he's on top of his game by any stretch of the imagination. But you look at Hellickson, he's going to be the same. The delay game out on the mound, but he's going to get the job done. He's not going to go 9 innings and wow you every time out, but he's just going to get the job done. And I think that's something to be said for that. You need guys that go out there and are going to give you 6-7 innings, and it's going to be a comfortable baseball game. As I look down the line, the one guy that I have no problems with, and I look at and I'm happy with him, is Jared Eichhoff. And I think he's the guy that flies under the radar on this team, under the radar on the pitching staff, and I think he may be the best one out there. I mean, this is a guy that goes in with a bulldog mentality. He's not afraid of anybody standing in front of him. He thinks he's better than every hitter that's coming up to the plate. That's what I love about him. Then you go to Vince Velasquez, and the one thing I still see from him even in spring training right now, and I'm sure you guys you either talked about it or thought about it, is that you never know if the guy goes and throws pitches or the guy who goes 8 innings and throws 70 pitches. And to me, that's consistency, and that's one thing he still has to strive for. I think the only way to do that is forget about strikeouts. You have to sit back and forget about strikeouts and try to put people away on 3 and 4 pitches.
You mentioned Eichhoff, Ricky, and you look back to that Hamels trade. So far, he seems like he's been the jewel of that trade. I mean, Alfaro's still not up. Jake Thompson got a cup of coffee last year. Who knew that Eichhoff would really be the anchor of that deal so far?
Well, I didn't think he was going to be, but when he came up to the big leagues, I mean, you know what? The one thing I guess that you look at when you think about who do you have question marks about, he never comes up. Am I right? I mean, do you really think about him and say, well, he's questionable about this and that? No, because he is a true pitcher. That's the one guy on this team that goes out there and he's going to give it his all every time out. And I like that about him. I mean, he's got good stuff. He's added in a slider. He's not afraid to throw his changeup now, and he's got a dominant curveball. So you mix those 3 things together and you throw strikes, you're gonna have a pretty good career. And I like what I've seen from him so far. I go back to a series last year Citizens Bank Park, Giancarlo Stanton came in. He was hot coming into the series. He threw up and in, not trying to hit the guy, just to move him. And that was a reflection of what the series was going to be like for Giancarlo Stanton. I believe he struck out 9 or 10 times in that series because of that, because of the fear of the inside pitch.
Ricky Bottalico with us, and Ricky, Mike talks about the starting rotation. You, of course, were a closer. Could you kind of handicap how the bullpen looks for us?
You know what? That might be the biggest question still left on the field down in Clearwater. Because I know Pete Mackanin has said that Jamar Gomez is going to be the closer, which, I mean, you can't really blame him. I mean, Jamar was good for 4.5 months last year, and then he kind of hit a big bump. But I think he's going to give him the first go at it. I still like Neris. I think he's got tremendous stuff. I think he's in a no-fear situation. I think he's going to be the setup guy. You look elsewhere, I mean, obviously Benoit, and then I think there's just some stuff that's up in the air right now still. The left-hander out of the bullpen, whether you carry 1, 2, do you carry a long guy? Is that going to be Morgan? I mean, there still are some question marks, but I think the bullpen has gotten deeper. I won't say it's necessarily a lot better, but it's deeper. And I think that helps any ball club, especially when, you got a young starting pitching staff for the most part.
Ricky, you talked about Altair and how he's swinging the bat well. How about Maikel Franco? What do you hope to see from him this season? And is this a big year for him in his development?
I think it definitely is. I mean, nothing's set in stone in Philadelphia anymore, not for this ball club, that's for sure. And I think they want to see him be a little bit more selective up at the plate. And I think it helps with a Saunders and a Kendrick around you because you're going to get better pitches to hit. I think the one glaring thing about Maikel Franco last year was he was trying to carry the team on his back. He doesn't necessarily have to do that this year, which equals to me he has to be more patient at the plate. He has to be able to recognize the pitch that is his, the pitch out over the middle of the plate that he could drive. And he doesn't have to pull everything. He's got enough power to hit the ball out to right center field. So stay up the middle. And I think if you see that early on in the season, that will carry over for him.
Yeah, he's interesting because, it's so amazingly fast, Ricky, and I'm sure that you are well aware of how fast these guys' careers move. You go from hearing so much about a guy to he gets that cup of coffee, and now he's going into his 3rd year, and you're wondering, is this the guy that the Phillies hoped that they were getting when they had Franco and you heard so much about him?
Well, I think the one thing that you have to understand is that when a guy's trying to carry everybody in the lineup, it puts a lot more pressure on him. And like I said, with the moves the Phillies have made, it should take that pressure off them, which this is the year, and you bring up 3 years in, you're not a rookie anymore. You're a guy that is supposed to be able to do some things out on the field, and the Phillies are looking for big power numbers from him. That's what they want. They want the home runs, the RBIs. He's the guy that's going to drive people in.
Is he a guy? Is he a build around the team kind of guy, or is he more of a, where would you ultimately like to see him on a good team hitting in the lineup?
I think third in the lineup would be is a great spot for him, but it's not really feasible in this lineup right now. I think he's going to be the number 4 hitter, and he's got to live with that. I mean, the bottom line is, who cares? And I know people will say, but you want to get at bats. Well, who's the one guy that you want to get the most at bats on this team? Is Franco. So the 3 spot would be the best possible place, but I could deal with him in the 4 spot. I mean, that's a spot where power is key. But you know what? Let's face it. You're in that spot once during the game, and then the game dictates where you hit from there. So, I mean, it's all about your first at bat, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Ricky, Brock Stassi's gotten a lot of ink and a lot of publicity during the spring, but do you think that Daniel Nava, because of his deal and how they could fit him in, is a guy they keep over Stassi, or do you think Stassi makes this big league roster?
There's guys that go to spring training that have already made the team. There are guys that are question marks and you're not really sure. Then there's a guy like Stassi who, I mean, come on, he's hit his way onto the team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And sometimes you are forced to make that decision. Whether they go, with him or Nava that's just going to be a toss of the coin at the end of this spring training. But I got to believe, if Stassi doesn't come up, he's one of the first guys up after that. I think he makes the team.
How much weight do teams then put on the spring training performance? Is it one of those things where sometimes the guy can be a spring training darling but not able to put it up, or do you get rewarded for performing in the spring?
Well, let me put it this way. 1994 spring training, myself and Phil Geisler was his name. He was the first baseman for the Phillies. We had just won the Paul Owens Award for the best players in the minor leagues, pitching and position players. He goes into spring training, and he absolutely tore it up. Have you ever heard his name on the big league roster?
No.
I don't know that I recall his name, you even saying it right now.
No, yeah. I mean, he was awesome in Double-A and then kind of petered out after that. But, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is that spring training is 1 month. Some guys come in better baseball form than others. And then, you get to where you put that third deck on a stadium, and some guys don't exactly show up for that. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's more about character right now. I think if they like him and they think he brings something to the clubhouse, then I think, a guy like Brock Stassi stays. But to say that he's going to hit, 370 during the season is insane.
Yeah. Ricky Bottalico's with us here. Phillies.
I sucked in spring training.
Well, the pitchers are different too, right? Aren't the pitchers different? And you guys are working on location and pitches, and you're not really.
Well, number one, my biggest problem was location because I was a power pitcher. I was pumping a lot of fastballs in spring training just for the sole reason that I wanted to build arm strength. So the first 2 weeks, I would get my head kicked in, and then the bell starts to ring towards the end of spring, and all of a sudden you're a different pitcher. So, I mean, there are guys, and that's the difference, though. There are certain guys that are going to make the team regardless if they have a 40 ERA in spring training. It doesn't mean anything. I've never turned over a baseball card that had spring training stats on it.
What about Hernandez? He's an interesting guy to me. He's probably going to lead off. He says he wants to steal 40 bases. He seems like such an enigma of the talent that he could be. Do you look at him as a building block, as a guy who will be here when this team hopes to turn the corner?
I would hope so. I mean, and I say that just for the sole fact that you say this is a big year for Franco. I think this is a big year for Hernandez. Because if he gets on base and starts erasing himself like he did last year, that's a telltale sign that, he hasn't learned baseball-wise. He does not have that mindset to be that guy on base all the time because he erases himself too much. He gets caught stealing too much. And that could be changed. That could be something you study. You study the other pitchers. You know their moves. He can hit the baseball, okay? I mean, he's an average defensive player. He, every once in a while he flashes glove. But I mean, for the most part, I would call him an average to a little bit above average fielder. Okay, but to me, I think the biggest kick on him is his baseball mentality, and I think he's got to show that has changed this year.
Ricky, how about your thoughts on Pete Mackanin as he's gone along now and what you think of the job that he's done and what impressions you have of him?
By the way, I saw Pete Mackanin eating breakfast next to me at the Clear Sky Cafe in Clearwater the other day. Nobody recognized him. Nobody.
You just keep digging in Clearwater, don't you?
He's on the convention.
I'm still in my
Bureau.
mind. I'm
Maybe
still there, Ricky. I'm still there.
Chamber of Commerce boy. You know what? I think Pete's done a great job. And I'd be sad if the team improves this year and they decide to make a change there. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I mean, I really believe he's the guy that has kind of kept this team together for the most part. I mean, think about the injuries last year to the pitching staff. I mean, he's gone through a lot in his first, year and a half, 2 years of coaching or managing. And quite frankly, he's a tremendous, tremendous baseball mind. And I think that is something that doesn't just come and go. I think he's got the mindset of a great manager.
So from one current manager to another former manager, Ricky Bowe, we were on the air, Mike and I were the other day, and the news came down, the sad news about Dallas Green. We were lucky to hear some great thoughts from Chris Wheeler and his stories about Dallas Green, but we're eager to hear any interactions that you had with a guy. Chris Wheeler said they called him Whispers because he did anything but.
Yeah, he was. Well, I can't talk because I got a mouth on me too. So, but I just think, you know what? He's a guy that demanded respect just in being in a room, and quite frankly, he told you what was on his mind all the time. And I think a lot of people look at him as a harsh individual, very stern, but he was not always that. I mean, he was one to throw out a joke and mess around with people. But I mean, when it came to being serious, that's what he was. But I really believe that. I mean, I saw an article the other day, and it was talking about people who demanded respect on the ball field, and he was one of them. Darren Dalton was another, and I think Larry Boa and John Vukovic. And I think those names are synonymous with Phillies baseball. I mean, that's the bottom line. I really believe, Dallas was one that commanded respect, and he got it, and he wasn't afraid to let you know how he felt, and I think that's a good thing, especially in the baseball world.
Yeah, no doubt that everybody who has talked, whether they liked him or not, when they played for him or didn't, they certainly knew he was not. He was very easily read that he was there because he wanted you to get better, and it was some sad stuff because, hey, for a while there, he was the only guy who had ever won a World Series managing this team, and he even had run-ins with Charlie. And it seems like, Ricky, he had run-ins with the guys that he thought he could get more from, that he knew there was more to get from those guys. And, you being in part of that organization.
Isn't that what managing is all about? I mean, when it comes down to it, is whether you like the person that's managing you or not, they see something more in you. If they're getting on you, they see something more, and they want to bring that out in you. I think that should be the number one thing a manager should be. Is somebody that's going to get more out of you on a daily basis.
Yeah, and you mentioned about Pete, the fact that Pete Mackanin, not Pete Thompson over here, but that he has had to deal with a lot, and you wonder, if they vision, if he is managing to be a longer-term guy, because I think when they hired him, people kind of looked at him as kind of like a bridge to whoever's going to come in here when this team's ready to take off.
Well, Pete, a lot of people don't understand. Pete's been around forever.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't look that old, but I mean, this guy, I can remember playing in Montreal against the Expos, and our bullpen was kind of in the dugout, at the end of the dugout where the third base coach was. He was the third base. He'd always come over and talk baseball with us. Always. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing. I mean, I think people look at it because he hadn't been a manager. He had been interim, that he couldn't do the job. I don't think that's right. Sometimes, quite frankly, I think managers get overblown and become great managers because of the guys they already have on their team.
By the way, for the young people out there was a baseball team in Montreal. That's who Ricky's referring to.
Yes, there was, and they used to bang on their seats the whole game.
Ricky Bottalico from Phillies Pre and Post on Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia, kind enough to join us here to take a look at this Phillies team.
No on-deck series this year, so we'll see you win. Ricky, when are we seeing you?
You will see me April 3rd, opening day.
All right.
Phillies, Reds. Who's paid? Oh, Hellickson, opening day starter. All right, Ricky, we'll talk soon, pal.
All right, guys, have a good one.